what we'll do now is we're going to look at these people from 538. And if you
Yeah.
want to talk about your experience with them, I go ahead and mention that before we kind of look at their
Sure.
latest election model.
Yeah, just a point about New Hampshire, I'd also say, though, it's look at the exit polling, which, again, can't take always for granted, but 2020 was 46% independent. RFK is going to absolutely affect New Hampshire in ways that need to be pulled on for sure to understand.
Yeah. I think that it's going to be a lot closer than people think. I think it's going to be within two, to be honest. I think it's going to be I think that's actually going to be like a razor tight race. I think it's going to be close again, like it was in 2016. But go ahead.
538. I don't want to throw too much shade. I'm a nice human being. And I also understand that some people might be watching this that aren't fully attuned to everything that goes on in polling and in the media. But 538 was founded by a man named Nate Silver, who I think had some really great ideas. And I think ostensibly did his best to create a prediction model that tried to account for some of the problems in polling, which is the fact that some different pollsters are more accurate than others. Some have house effects, and ostensibly you could build a model to correct for those things. I think over time, it's questionable about whether there's been any statistical lift, which is what you would try and measure to determine whether this has been accurate. Well, what I can say is that this has been a pretty hot football that's been passed, or it got bought by New York Times, and I don't know how, but somehow ABC News wound up with it, and that rolls up to Disney, and they've spent millions and millions of dollars heavily producing this site, and it gets a lot of traffic. I think maybe it gets less traffic than it did before, but we've always been a member of the 538 aggregate. In fact, in 2020, we were one of Nate Silver's most accurate pollsters, and I think our ratings swung around, but I think it was in the B range, and that's pretty good for the most hated conservative-leaning independent pollster out there. Their words, not ours. But what happened is they fired, he left, whatever. Nate Silver is no longer running 538. Happened back in March or April, and about a month after that, they started sending us emails asking questions about our methodology. And listen, I'll tell you anything you want to know about our methodology. It's not rocket science, but I could feel an ulterior motive in the emails, so I kind of just said, yeah, maybe I'll get to it someday. I actually typed a response and then deleted it because I was like, why are they asking me this stuff? I mean, it's on our methodology page. And there's one specific question, too, I thought was loaded. We talked about phone numbers and panel depth. And listen, there's people in the field that have proprietary panels. Nobody knows how big those are. We prioritize landline calls to people who we think will pick up the phone. There's 400,000 of those people. You can kind of call that a proprietary panel in many ways. I'm sure it's 50 times bigger than the one that New York Times or whoever has, right? And it's definitely more depth when combined with online panels than the online panels are themselves. So we have a lot of trust in our methodology, but I could feel that they were going to try and grind an axe on that one. And then all of a sudden, the new CEO, director, whatever you want to call him, G. Elliott Morris of 538, sent us the most insolent email about how we needed to respond within 72 or 36, whatever hours, or would be dropped. And we needed to answer why we associate with right-leaning blogs and fringe conspiracy theorists. Like, one of them was Steve Bannon, and one of them was Fox News, of all people. And if Fox News is fringe conspiracy theorists, like, and again, why do they care how we distribute our information? That has nothing to do with our polling. And they were very accusatory that they may be feeding us ideas. Who does it matter where our ideas of questions come from? And we have integrity, and like everybody else, disclose any sponsors. And so there were all these implications that they didn't like our ideology and the topics that we polled on. And that was the reason that they were dropping us from the aggregate. So when we got that nasty email, we just told them to pound sand. And of course, it was 6 months until they dropped us out. But I can tell you now, when I go and look at 538, and it's a black box model, like who knows what they're actually doing to the numbers. They're adjusting it. That's a feature, not a bug. And there are reasons I look at that site and say, well, this can't make sense. The very first one I will bring to your attention is the fact that New York Times Siena themselves came out and said that with their Harris +3, Harris +4 numbers, they're probably oversampling Biden supporters. So if that's true, and they are in the Real Clear Politics aggregate, and the aggregate only leads Harris by 1.5, how come the current 538 prediction is Harris plus 3.6 or whatever it is? Why are they left of the RCP average when they should be making up for the fact that people in the polling industry are oversampling Democrats? And so I can only now assume that it's become a tool of propaganda.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do with my average. Again, I don't know if I'm going to be right or not. It's kind of like you. I mean, yeah, this is an art, and I'm trying to see if this ends up being somewhat around what happens. I mean, if I get it right, I mean, hey, like, that's good. I'm not saying this is going to be 100% accurate, but I'm trying to account for whatever polling error there could possibly be. It may not be perfect, but I think I'm trying to be an honest aggregator, and hopefully I am correct, and we could end up being mainstream in 2028 and going forward. But Harris is not above 50% in the national popular vote. Like, it's just not happening right now. And win probability,
3.6, right? Yeah.
They have Harris at 52. So she is apparently doing better than Biden was somehow.
Like 3.8 now, almost 4 points. Okay. So you have New York Times Siena, ostensibly one of the most trusted mainstream media news, probably spends millions a year on like 50 different people to do their polling. And they're at Harris +4, and they say that our polling oversamples Democrats. Then you have a political prediction site that takes all of the information from the entire industry, which leaned left in 2016 and 2020, and is just as far left. So they've corrected nothing. What value do they have?
Probably even inflated some of the numbers based on what we were looking at in their average. Like, because what they do, and I'm going to pull this up really quick on my screen, they actually have SoCal Strategies poll here with me and Ready Go Politics, and for whatever reason, they've just like, for no reason, they've just put Ready Go Politics as a partisan sponsor for the Republican Party. Unless Red Eagle has lied to my face in person, that's not true. Like, it's just not, it's not true. It's not. Like, there's even other websites that, like, the tweet was community noted about one of the polls we put out in Pennsylvania that showed Trump up by 1, which is sort of similar to what you have. And they had a tweet that they community noted saying Red Eagle Politics has dark money involved. Like, that's ridiculous. That's not true. And
well, you know, you're a crowdsourcer. Hey, if you're watching this video right now and you gave money to On Point Politics, you're probably a member of the Iranian National Guard, or you're probably a member of the KGB. You might not know that, but 538 thinks that.
Yeah. But like, look, like right now, like somehow on August 23rd, they had Harris in a data point at like 52, 53%, and Trump is at 40. There's no polling on August 23rd that has that kind of a lead. I mean, you have August 24th with Harris +7, and you kind of
it might be two overlapping polls, but the point is that I found crazy is if you go back to that one in mid-August, it looks like a 36. I don't think we could find that anywhere.
Like, what is this? Harris is at 48. Trump's at in the high 30s. Like, what is this? This doesn't make any sense. And looking at some of their state margins, like apparently Nevada and Arizona are going to move to the left, and Pennsylvania becomes more Democrat than 2020. Or like in Nevada and Arizona move to the right. Well, Nevada moves to the right from 2020, but Arizona moves left. But Pennsylvania becomes more Democrat in Wisconsin, but Michigan only becomes 0.1% more Democrat, and Florida's only R+4. They can kiss my ass. There's no way that Florida is going to be 0.6 percentage points more Republican than it was in 2020 when you had 1 million+ net registration gains for the Republican Party in Florida. Like, it's just not happening. Till North Carolina, Even going based off their aggregate. This is how I know they don't understand what they're doing. And you know this too. They have Harris up in the popular vote by 3.8%. The state of North Carolina votes to the right of the nation by 6 points. There's no way that it is only it's going to trend 3 points to the left of the nation when it's been stagnant for the past 8 years. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And then they have second at R+6, by the way.
What I would ultimately point back to when trying to understand this is that they've created a statistical model. Who knows how much human intervention is involved in it or not? Maybe none at all. But at the end of the day, I'm not getting a feeling here that they're trying to be super accurate, because I think what's going to happen is no matter what they predict, it's going to be the same as the last 2 times out. 538's going to lick their wounds and then still get funded to the tune of millions of dollars from their corporate overlords. So what incentive do they have to be accurate? It's not going to, I mean, are they going to really fire G. Elliott Morris if he blows it by being 3 or 4 points too left? I don't really think that's what's going to happen.
Look at this. They have these possible scenarios. Harris is 5 times more likely than Trump to win with over 350 electoral votes.
Wow.
Even on the best night, she's not getting over 319. Like, she's not winning anything more than Biden 2020 plus North Carolina. That's like her ultimate best case scenario. Like, if Trump just if Trump started having dementia in October, that would be the election result. Like, it's just, there's no way.
They have equal odds of winning with less than 350 votes, but she's up 3.5 points in the national popular vote. Whatever.
Harris's national poll, her chance of winning the national popular vote is 71 out of 100, but Trump's is 30 out of 100.
Yeah, but they're looking for 2 lines above it. How contradictory is that?
Harris is 7 times more likely than Trump to win the popular vote by 10 points. And she is, and then we see here, Harris wins at least one state Biden didn't win in 2020, 60 out of 10.
So here's another way I would sum it up for your viewers. Okay, go back up. She's got about a 1 in 5 chance, according to 538, of winning the national popular vote by 10 percentage points.
No.
We have never showed Kamala Harris beating Trump in a single one of our released polls. We were within about 1.5 points when looking at average numbers in 2020, and I think within the margin of error, within like a point in 2016 on the national popular vote. We have never showed Kamala Harris winning, but she's got a 1 in 5 chance of winning by 10% in a black box model that is ostensibly picking the best polling and adjusting it to make it even more accurate. This is a propaganda tool.
And look, and this kind of proves your point. I don't know if you looked at this part of their thing. Look, this is going to prove your point. What do polls or fundamentals say alone? What are fundamentals either way? What is that? But what they do is they get the polling average, and then they adjust their average for the effects of party conventions. And then what they do is they forecast what they think the polling average is going to be. So that means there is human intervention, because they're literally predicting what their own polling average is going to be on election day. And that's 88%. They have this fundamentals only forecast, which is 13% of the weight, that happens to somehow have Trump a point doing better. But they're forecasting what they think that is. And this is what they do to get their state margins. Like, that is not what I'm doing. I'm getting all of the polling data that we have and weighing it to a target electorate. And I mean, I may not be doing this 100% accurate, but it's going to be correcting polls that have Biden, a Democrat, plus 8 samples to being tied. That's going to be way more representative.
You're doing it the right way. I think independents are going to be, I think that conservatives have been fleeing the Republican Party. And I think some more conservative Democrats have as well. I think the independent number is going to be higher than that. But again, it's like, who knows who's going to be right. It's a good take you're making. I can't believe 88%.
No, you saw that, right? They literally have 88% weight on what they think the polling average is going to be. So now what the current average says, what they
Somebody is typing a strongly worded long tweet right now about how we're totally wrong about this. I guess my point is I don't care. It's at this point, to us, they've proven themselves to be ideologically driven. Here's what I'll say. Right now, 60% of likely voters in this country think the media is the enemy of the people. If you're one of those people, we would love to have you as viewers. If you're not one of those people, go read the New York Times and go look at 538.
Right. And it's like, yeah, on Twitter, you see all these people dooming when they look at the 538 forecast, or they look at polls that have overestimated. Like, I was on a space yesterday with somebody named Rufus online. You may or may not know who that is. He's been really dooming. He wants to write in DeSantis because, more immigration, or more abortion, or something like that. But basically, he's like, the polling in Wisconsin looks bad for Trump. He's down 7. And I'm like, but Trump is still doing better than he was against Biden's 2020 polling. Like, Harris is only up in the aggregate. Like, they were all telling me, the average looks horrible for Trump. And she's up by 1.5 in Wisconsin. Biden was ahead by 6.5, and he barely won. And the same thing happened in 2016. Yeah. Like, these pollsters, I mean, there's people who are just like, but why can't the polling be better this time? Why do you have to say? It's because I look at their samples and I look at what their crosstabs are, and it just doesn't make any sense. And even in Arizona,
I mean, it is better for Trump this time for sure. Well, you said the magic word is crosstabs. Okay. I'm assuming you go into a lot of crosstabs on your channel, and I would say that anybody could do it. You don't need to be a public opinion professional to click through, find the crosstabs. I don't have time to do all this stuff, but like, I know a lot of these polls are garbage. You can spot garbage polls yourself. It's really super easy to do. The first thing you do is go in and look at all the ways they weighted the poll. See if you can find out how big the sample is, and whether or not it was regionally targeted, and whether they shifted their demographic weightings from last week. What does their 2020 makeup look like? A lot of those have been really way off, like New York Times. And then start looking at the results and saying, well, do they match like what I expect? It's like, Rasmussen's a pretty accurate pollster, and they had Biden losing independents in 2020, but now they have him winning independents for the last 3 years, Trump winning independents. But now New York Times has independents going to Kamala Harris 5 or 10 points, whatever. Like, then you'll know that the polling's garbage yourself. You won't have to rely on black-pilled people on Twitter. Just do it yourself. Ignore those people.
Yeah, anything like, for example, anything that has Trump within 5 with whites is garbage. Like, it's just not happening. It's not happening. Like, there's no way Trump is winning white voters by under 5. Like, or even it's competitive. Like, anything that has that, it's just not true. And I wanted to have Mark on the show because I think it was important to have one of the industry's most accurate pollsters, who a lot of people, again, I don't know what this is. I don't know where this really came from. It seems like whenever people are more accurate in their assessments, you just automatically get labeled as a right-wing pollster. But I try to bring as much attention to this kind of stuff as possible. And I wanted to have Mark on to really explain what his numbers were, so that people can see that there are people out there who really want to be honest with their polling data, and that actually want to do this to provide accurate information for voters to see. Because I think it is important for people to know some of these things. I think it is. But when you have all of these headlines that have data that it's just not going to happen, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.